All right, we have the white pieces. We can start with e4. I think it's worth looking at different openings, especially at these lower levels, because you can still learn from opening fundamentals. Like, even though I don't know the specifics of openings, I think it's worth showing that just by following the opening principles that we talked about, control the center, develop your pieces, and castle your king, you don't really have to know the specifics of any opening. So that being said, I do know the Scotch, which is this move. And when I played in the Chess Punks tournament, my coach taught me the Scotch Gambit. So after takes, you just let them have this pawn for a bit. You develop the bishop. You kind of go for attacks over here. I don't know if it's super worth to go down that line because it gets a little bit sharp. It's not necessarily fundamentals. Okay, but our opponent doesn't even take. So what I usually recommend to beginner students is when there's pawn tension in the center, which means the pawns are like looking at each other and they like, if it's our turn, we can capture. If it's their turn, they can capture. That's what tension means. To get rid of it as soon as possible. This isn't necessarily the case in all openings, but in a large majority of them, you're just gonna make your life a whole lot easier, right? Oh my gosh, my mouse. Where's my mouse? The mouse stopped working. Hello? It's just frozen. Hold on. Anyway, technical issues aside, we're gonna take the pawn, is the moral of that story. Oh my gosh, it's so fast. Okay. Ah! Everything's falling apart. Okay. So, also the point of this is that our queens are staring at each other, right? So now if we take this knight, this is more tension in the center. The knights are looking at each other. It's our turn. We have the ability to take the knight. They will capture with the pawn. Oops, not the pawns move like that. They will capture with the pawn. And then when we take the queen, they have nothing to take back with except the king. So they won't be able to castle. So we're going to capture the knight here. It's not always a great idea to just trade off all of your pieces. But in this case, we're preventing them from castling. Generally, good idea. Okay, so since we can castle, we might as well, do that. So I'm thinking to develop this bishop. We can immediately develop it here, attacking this pawn. And that's also just a great diagonal to have the bishop on, so I think we will just do that. I'm trying to fix my dang mouse. It's moving so fast. Okay, there we go. Maybe a mouse pad would help. Okay, and now we go back to our fundamental questions. What does that move do? Well, I'll answer my own question. It attacks our bishop, right? But it's our turn. So if we take this bishop, what happens? They take with the pawn. And now this is another fundamental idea, is that doubled pawns are usually bad. So even though we're just trading off pieces, we're making our opponent's position worse, which is good for us. If this would help them develop a piece, like if somehow like a knight could recapture here or something, then we might reconsider trading off this piece. But heading into an endgame, having doubled pawns is going to work against our opponent. So let's go for it. You have to kind of weigh the pros and cons when you're trading off pieces, but in this case, I think it's a perfectly fine move. So now we have a few options. We can castle, and that is like the final step of the opening, which this is much more of a middle game now. Honestly, since the queens are gone, it's not super necessary, but we should just, in general, following our opening principles, let's castle. Then we can finish developing. You can maybe put the bishop here or here. Now the mouse is too slow. What a disaster. Well, that's so fast. Okay, that's slow. This is like medium. I don't know why my mouse just stopped working. I'm so sad. All right, our opponent developed a knight. What does this move do? It develops a knight, but it also attacks this pawn. We shouldn't just leave this pawn, for the taking. So how can we defend it? We can continue developing our own knight, which defends that pawn. Worst case scenario, we can also push this pawn, but it's not so good to push pawns in front of your king, because that allows this bishop to come out and give check. It's not a huge deal because we just move over, but again, just giving our opponent something that they would want. So let's just develop the knight, protect the pawn. We're pretty happy campers here. Seeing that bishop came there anyway. So we can, you know, trade it off, but then we have the same problem as our opponent. We would have doubled pawns in the center. So instead, I'm actually thinking either here for the bishop, or we could give a check. That's another option. But the original move I was thinking was just moving the rook here, and then if we want to trade this bishop off, because I feel like this bishop is going to be pretty strong for them. It is preventing us now from pushing this pawn because it's pinned to the king, meaning that if it moves, the king would be under attack. So I think trading off this dark squared bishop would probably be in our best interest, and trading down to an endgame when our opponent has these positional weaknesses, meaning the doubled pawns. I just think it's a pretty good idea. So let's make this move. Our opponent's playing pretty well here. Very basic stuff. And you'll see this a lot, especially like in the under, I don't know, under 1,000, under 1,200, of just people being very eager to trade off pieces because you think, okay, the fewer pieces on the board, the easier it's going to be. That's not always the case. Endgames are very complicated. But I do understand the appeal, which is why I honestly am thinking to trade this off. But let's first ask the question, what does this move do? It's attempting to start a pawn storm. It doesn't really have any feet to stand on, though. We don't need to prevent this move, like prevent it from going further any further, that's what I meant to say. But I think I'd actually just be happy to trade off this strong bishop, so let's go for it. This move does not prevent our plan. So now when they capture, if they capture, we'll take back with the rook. We're lifting up our rook. This is also just developing a piece. Okay, interesting. So the knight moves to protect the bishop. So we can take it, but then the knight will get a little bit better of a square to be on, I think. Usually it's best not to let your opponent's knights get too close to you. So I'm actually thinking, well, let's just continue with our rook development. Let's bring the other rook into the party, because then this knight is pinned to the king, and they will have to do something about this, because that means the knight no longer protects the bishop, right? So let's bring more pieces to the party. It is a party after all. Ah. Okay. So here are our options. We can take now. They will have to take with the pawn. Again, leaving them with two sets of double pawns. Not a great look. I think my other option would be to just go here and maybe build up some pressure against this knight, but we can also just do that after we take the bishop. So then the only other consideration would be, okay, is this actually a good thing if they get double pawns? Does this B file being open do anything for our opponent? I don't really think it does, because we can just push B3. And then this rook is just entirely blunted if it does move along the open file. But that would be the best idea for our opponent. But okay, let's take the bishop, force them to get more double pawns, and then we'll try and win the endgame. So how are we going to do that? We're going to start getting our rooks a little bit more active, meaning we're going to double them on this file. Okay, the pawn pushes forward. What does this move do? It attacks our rook. Pretty happy just to go back. So now if the rook comes in, this seems to be the move. And after takes, We're all good. Alright, what does this move do? I assume it's meaning to swing over and defend the knight. But if we double rooks now, that shouldn't be a problem. I don't think this move does anything else, so. Sorry, moving a little bit faster because our opponent has not dropped under 15 minutes yet. Oh, wait for it. Hey, oh, okay. They dropped 1 second under. It's like they're doing a challenge or something. Okay, so we have 2 attackers on this square, right? We have our 2 rooks lined up. So what does this mean as far as counting? Takes, right? Pawn takes. We have another piece. So we're gonna win a pawn here. Pretty happy to just do that. So now our rook is extremely active. If you look at our pieces as compared to our opponent's pieces, especially the rooks, like this guy's just all stuck in the corner. Like what is he even doing? Alright, what does this move do? It attacks our rook. What are we gonna do about it? Probably move the rook, right? We can defend the rook, but it's not super necessary. Like there's no reason for the rook to stay on this square for any particular reason. So usually it's best to just start going after pawns. So we can go here and go after this pawn, and you can see now why it's usually a bad thing to have these like isolated pawns that don't have a buddy next to them. Like these are better, and our pawns here are better because we can always push up and they hold hands, they defend each other. This guy's got no hands to hold. So we go here, I guess the knight can go here, but then we just take it. And there's no other way for them to defend this pawn. So let's go after the pawn. And we'll just start gobbling up the pawns. So the one thing we do need to keep in mind, since none of our kingside pawns have moved and we are castled, and we have no rooks on the back rank, all of those things are often a recipe for getting back rank checkmated. There's no way for them to do that at the moment because the rook has like no files to get in. It will take them a few moves, but it is just something to keep in mind. So I think the best move here is probably to go rook to b8. And then after we defend this pawn, probably they can just move the knight. Imagine that's probably the best idea. We could also just allow them to have this pawn, but it's not really a great idea because then we'll have to defend against the back rank. But we don't have to worry about that. All right. So, okay, what does this move do? Remember how I was talking about back rank mate? This is their only way to get in, this file. So as soon as this knight moves, on the next move they will be threatening the back rank. So if we just mindlessly take this pawn, this knight can move, attack our rook, and threaten back rank checkmate. Checkmate. Goodness, can I speak today? The problem for them is that our knight is here, and it just covers. So I think we actually can just go ahead and mindlessly take the pawn, funnily enough. I don't think there's another way to threaten anything. Let's take more free stuff. What opening was this? This was the Scotch. Declined? I don't really know the specifics of it. They didn't take the pawn on move 2 or 3 or whenever they normally take the pawn. I don't usually play the Scotch, but we're trying out some just basic openings just to show you that you don't have to know specifics of openings to play good chess. You just need fundamentals. Okay, so this was the idea. This does prevent the back rank checkmate. So what can we do with our rook in the meantime? Because we don't want to just lose it, right? We can play here, we can give a check. We can also just play here and threaten the knight. We can play here and threaten pawns. And actually, like, this might be the better idea because this is an actual threat. If we go here and threaten the knight, they're just gonna move the knight. But if we go to c5, we have a double threat and they can't defend both of them. So that's why it's good to look for ways you can make double attacks. I don't think I'm missing anything else. It's probably a good idea at some point to push a pawn to prevent any back rank ideas. So we can eventually move this knight, but there's no like threat to our knight at the moment. So let's just go here. Very nice. What about knight a4? If knight a4, we would have just kept the rook on this file and probably just pushed a pawn. Oh, sorry. I'm thinking of the wrong move order. After we move the rook up, then knight a4. I'm like, there's a pawn here. That's a good question. I was thinking about that move, but what I didn't really consider is that it's attacking both. Oh, you know what we would have done? We would have given a check. And gone from there. No, I don't know. We're gonna have to look at that because that's actually probably the best move. So in this case, maybe we just prevent any threats once and for all. We can also play this move. We could also just take the pawn, right? Let's just take a pawn. And then finally, I think on the next move, we're gonna have to prevent the back rank stuff. So yeah, our opponent's best idea is to go here and start attacking along the second rank. So usually if you have two rooks, it's good to put them along the second or the seventh rank in general. But even if you just have one, that's also a pretty good idea. Okay, what does this move do? It attacks our rook. We can just defend it, which would also, excuse me, also open up a space for our king to go. Again, not a huge reason for us to just leave the rook there, but might as well. But this kills two birds with one stone, right? We're hanging on to our rook and we're also giving our king a space to run. And as long as this knight stays here, they're never checking us. But I would eventually like the knight to move. So now we have ideas like pushing here, and we can start pushing the pawns in front of our king since the queens are off the board, since we're in an endgame, right? That's when you start pushing your pawns. All right, this knight is doing a few jobs at the moment. What I would love to do is trade off the rooks. Don't know if that's gonna happen though. So, again, we could go here. So the only other consideration would be if they can add another attacker to this, but they can't. They just don't have the pieces. So the thought with going here is to eventually push here, kind of force the king back and even threaten some mating ideas. We can also activate the king. That's another idea. Another thing we can do is just go here, attack the knight, force it to make some choices. Sure, let's do this. Do you guys see why I picked 15-minute games instead of 10-minute games? We would have lost on time forever ago. I noticed this knight still does the job of covering both the e-pawn and the d1 square. Okay, what does this move do? It attacks the b-pawn. We could go here. I like this move a lot. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this move. Let's go for it. So this pins the knight to the rook. And there's not an easy way to get out of it. The only thing you have to consider when you're doing this, and this piece is undefended, is whether the middle piece can move with check. And it can't do that. It can't get any checks on us. So then, when you have a pinned piece, you gotta add pressure. So my next move is gonna be b3. Okay, perfect. Our opponent just allows it. Yeah, I don't see any issues with this. And the knight just cannot really move anywhere. We're gonna be winning some material here. We're up 3 pawns, but this was a pretty tough fight. There was some tricky stuff here. So another like general rule I would say is like when your opponent pushes pawns, why can I not make arrows? Hello? Anybody? I can't click. Why am I having, oh, my mouse? Oh, my mouse is back. Okay, hold on. But now this mouse isn't working. What a disaster of a game for this poor mouse. Okay, so what we can do, what does this move do? It attacks pawn. If we take with check, forces either this or this, and we don't lose a pawn, so let's go for that. And this knight is still hanging. Okay, so now we can take, let's take with the rook and just offer the rook trade because we are up so much material that we would be happy to trade off. And then it's just a matter of cleanup. Okay, so now we've got kind of ugly pawns here. But our only concern is going to be this guy. These ones we can stop pretty easily. But the last rule in the endgame is you gotta activate your king. So let's bring the king to the party. Our opponent did a good job of that, but fortunately lost some material in the process. So something like this would be a good move for our opponent. We can almost win this pawn. Almost. Okay, very nice, but we can go here and grab this pawn, and then I don't care about any of these other pawns because I'm going to win with these ones. And then we just got to save our knight, which I think we'll be able to do. You just have to get rid of your opponent's last hope, which was the far advanced A pawn. Okay, we have one safe square to go, and that is b1. And they cannot make any progress. Okay. So we can start pushing these pawns. We can also just escort this pawn up. This is our farthest advanced pawn. You gotta push your past pawns. And let's go with the king. And because the black king is not in front, the pawn, or the king will just never be able to catch up. So now their best bet is a stalemate, and we just have to keep an eye on these guys. So as soon as one of these advances forward, we can either take it or push and lock everything down, and it should be easy. I'll just take it. Now we can just push the pawn, because just counting-wise, there's no way the opponent can catch up. Promote to a queen. They moved. Let's give this check. They can go here. What's our best course of action here? We can give this check, prevent them from taking that pawn. Okay, but I'm actually going to show you guys a strategy that is a lot easier than like thinking, okay, what if I prevent them from taking the pawn? And well, if they go here, is it going to be stalemate? Okay? The other strategy is make another queen. It sounds simple, but you've already got one queen. As soon as this pawn promotes, you just give up your queen for it. And you got another one. And you just make sure you're not stalemating. And we can we can give up the queen now, or we can wait. Let's wait. As soon as it promotes, we'll just give up our queen for it. And we might not even have to do that. Because if they go here to protect, then we promote with check. And one more thing to notice, guys, by the way, promoting with check, preventing everything, is oh, wait, it's not quite checkmate. Hold on, let's find a quick mate. If we go there, wait. If we go here, just start giving checks. Especially if you're low on time. Just give checks. Don't run them in circles, but you can't stalemate if you're checking. Another check, and it's mate. Let's review this, because I think I made a blunder, as somebody in chat pointed out, which is probably here. Yeah, because of knight a4. Which I don't think a 300 would find this, but you never know. You shouldn't underestimate your opponents ever. But why is this a good move? It's attacking the knight, it's also attacking the rook. But you say, well, Kamryn, can you just take the knight for free? Because they're threatening the back rank, right? Which is the whole thing I was talking about. This knight defends against it, but if they can remove this knight by just giving up their knight, right? Then this is a huge threat. Other problem with this is, if we move our rook thinking, oh, we gotta save the rook, if they capture, right? I could just show it on the board. Okay, move the rook. Bad idea, because if they capture, we can't actually capture back. We have to save our king. We have to play something like this, because if we capture here, then it actually is just checkmate. So that's the whole problem I was talking about the whole time. But I didn't realize how dangerous that knight a4 move would have been. Rook c7 check, yeah, that's the line I was thinking. So after knight a4, something like this. I guess the problem is this. This is mate in 1? Oh! Alright. Fair enough. I mean, what a way that would have been to end the game. Because this would be the move I would be afraid of, but they actually just have to go to like f6. And then we make the Luft. Yeah, our piece coordination was pretty nice here. The only problem, of course, was that we didn't have a space for our king to run away. But the move I was waiting for our opponent to do the whole time was to go along the second rank and start eating up our pawns, which is generally a good idea. But other than that, I think this game went pretty well.